Hi, I'm Brittany Quimby, Vice President of Marketing for Healthcare IT Today. I'm heading over to talk to the Medallion folks. They're an AI company that have a really unique and interesting solve for credentialing with health systems. Let's go check it out. Hi, we're here with Scott Turkow at Medallion. Scott, welcome.
Thank you.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do at Medallion?
Yeah, so I'm the VP of Strategic Partnerships. I work with our health system clients to ultimately solve for provider network management. We have a different approach to solving what is the credentialing, enrollment, ongoing monitoring problem within these organizations, which is highly administrative. But at the end of the day, what we try and do is extract that administrative nightmare of a process and ultimately turn it into something that's more efficient so organizations can move dollars from what is their administrative side of the ledger into their clinical side of their spend, ultimately making organizations more efficient by having an end-to-end automation process within credentialing, enrollment, and ongoing monitoring.
Great. And can you tell me a little bit about the problems with privileging today?
Yeah, ultimately with privileging as a credentialing process, same with enrollment, it's ultimately a pretty administrative process. There's bottlenecks, it's siloed from one group to the other. And so that creates inefficiencies not just for those employees that are facilitating the process, but also the providers themselves. And what that leads to is data that tends to be error prone, delayed start dates for providers, and ultimately it builds up expense and delays in the overall process.
And so, what's Medallion doing to help solve this?
Yeah, so the way Medallion looks at the problem within privileging and credentialing on the whole is that it's a disjointed process. So we've brought the entire workflow from start to finish, really from request all the way through to a provider having privileges at a particular site or a hospital. We've brought that into a singular platform, and we use artificial intelligence and AI technology to ultimately streamline that for more accurate data, more efficient processes, to ultimately short circuit that process down to something that's more condensed, that allow providers to get to effective dates much more quickly, making them happier, certainly making the organization happier, and then taking a lot of that administrative strain out of the process for the teams that are doing the work. And so that being all in one platform, I think the best thing to do is really take a look at a demo, and we have our product manager, Alden, that can walk us through that step-by-step process to show exactly how Medallion packages everything from credentialing requests all the way through to privileges in a single platform.
Okay, let's check it out.
Great.
I'm Alden. I'm on the software development team here at Medallion, helping to solve the credentialing problem with Scott. I'm going to work you through the demo today. So this is our admin platform. This is what our customers log into. And what we'll do for now is onboard a new provider. The admin is going to, in this case, log an initial appointment. So this would be a new provider coming in, and they may know that they need to get their payer enrollments done and their licenses done. One thing Medallion does well is we black box a lot of the complexity of all the different workflows that have to get done. So right when you hit next, you can add in the provider's information, send an invite email, select the entities that that provider is going to be working at. You can select the specialty for that provider, select the privileges for that provider that they'll be delivering at each of those locations. And just like that on the right, you see the request being built. And so this is all the work Medallion's going to do to help out our clients. You can add to that the various licenses. We recommend enrollments based on the locations the provider is working, and you hit finish. And just like that, the admin has sort of handed off the work to Medallion to complete. So right, what you can do is go into the provider and see all of the workflows that are in progress. So you can see the global appointment with our customer. This could be a credentialing primary source verification process. You can see the different appointments. So that could be with hospitals, that could be with care clinics. We'll jump into the provider experience though, because at this point, the provider will get an invitation email to Medallion. They'll create a username and password, go through some introduction on how we can help. And right at the top, they can see all the work that needs to be completed for them to get appointed to the medical staff or onboarded so they can start seeing patients. You can see there's a clear task menu for the provider to know what has to get done. We'll jump in and fill out our profile. One amazing feature of Medallion Medallion can connect to CAQH. We have resume uploaders and things like that. So on average, our providers' profiles will be around 70% complete right when they get into the profile. So there's just a few pieces of information that they need to complete. You can see that for these applications, they need to enter a reference, a peer reference, clinical references. They may need to upload case logs. This is all information the Medallion will then primary source verify. So at this point, the provider will continue working through their profile, and they may see, oh, there's some forms we need to fill out. These delineation of privilege forms are how a provider in this case would apply for privileges. And we pull in all the necessary documentation and forms and signatures that they need to complete all the appointments so they can get onto staff everywhere they'll need to do work. Let's go ahead and say this provider has finished their profile, at least for the first step, the first milestone. They can submit that application. And just like that, it goes to Medallion. So I'll go ahead and show you where Medallion kicks in here. So at this point, Medallion will receive the completed profile requirement from the provider. We'll log in and start performing primary source verifications on all this data, many of which are automated API integrations, some of which we may perform additional verifications, outreaches, etc. We perform all of this on behalf of our customer. We'll go ahead and review all of the documents that were submitted and signed by the provider. And ultimately, once we're ready, we will mark all of that as reviewed. Once Medallion's finished all the work that we're going to do on behalf of our customer, we'll go to our request queue and mark it as ready. And just like that, we'll now jump back into the admin view, and the admin will see a completed packet. So at this point, the provider has filled out all the information they need. Medallion has completed all the reviews they need, prepared all the applications they need. A member of the admin team can then review the work, review the verifications, look for any flagged issues on that profile. Maybe there's something here that they'd like a medical director to take a look at. So they can go ahead at that point and send it to committee. And so they'll send it to, in this case, the red flag review committee. And I'll stop the demo here for now. But at that point, the admin team, wherever they are for each of the hospitals, will go in and review that approval, review that application, and submit the approvals as necessary. And at that point, the provider is appointed to the medical staff and able to start seeing patients. Our goal is to get providers to their first billable appointment as quickly as possible so that you can focus on patient care.
Thanks so much for showing us your amazing platform. Where can people go to find out more about Medallion?
Yeah, the easiest way to find us is to go to medallion.co. You can find a lot of information about what we do, use cases, but also just reach out to the Medallion team to learn more or set up a demo.
Great. Thanks, Scott.
You're welcome. Thank you.